Philadelphia, November 2017. Sean Parker is standing in front of a room full of journalists when he says something that should have ended careers. Not because he lied, because he told the truth. How do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? That was the question. The question he and Zuckerberg and Systrom and all the others asked themselves when building the platforms 2 billion people now use every single day. And the answer, Parker says, was simple. Give them a little dopamine hit every time someone liked their photo. Small, unpredictable, just enough to bring them back. He called it a social validation feedback loop. And then, without flinching, he said this. The inventors, it's me, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Kevin Systrom on Instagram, it's all of these people. We understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. We did it anyway. That's not a miscalculation, not regret after the fact, not an innocent mistake they only understood years later. Conscious. They did it consciously, and that changes what it means when you reach for your phone for the 12th time today. That's not a character flaw, not weakness, not something you could have simply chosen differently. It's the output of a system, built, tested, refined, and deployed to produce exactly that response in you. And the people who built that system had access to a discovery that quietly rewrote everything we thought we understood about how desire works. A 1997 paper that most people have never heard of. Once you understand what that discovery was and how they used it, you will never look at that blinking light the same way again. In 1997, a neuroscientist named Wolfram Schultz at the University of Cambridge is studying the brains of monkeys. He expects to see something ordinary, neurons firing at the moment of reward. A drop of fruit juice. Neuron fires. Done. That part was right. But then he adjusted the experiment. When the reward became predictable, same time, every time, the dopamine response nearly disappeared. And when the reward became random, sometimes there, sometimes not, never certain, the neurons went through the roof. Your brain doesn't care about pleasure. It cares about the possibility of pleasure. This is called reward prediction error, the gap between what your brain expects and what actually happens. It's the most exploitable property of human psychology ever documented. Not because you can give people pleasure, because you can engineer uncertainty. Think about what that means for a social media platform. Every time you open Instagram, you don't know what you'll find. Maybe something great, maybe nothing. That refresh doesn't deliver content. It runs the exact same psychological loop Schultz documented in his lab. The reward isn't the post. The reward is not knowing what comes next. The slot machine figured this out in the 1970s. The phone reinvented it 40 years later. Same mechanism, different interface. This didn't happen by accident. There's a specific place where a lot of this began, and it was a classroom. Fall 2007. Stanford. Professor B.J. Fogg teaches a course called Mass Interpersonal Persuasion. The brief: use what we know about behavioral psychology to build Facebook apps that change how people act. 75 students, 10 weeks. By the end of the semester, the apps built in that classroom had accumulated more than 10 million users combined, 6 ranked in the top 100 of the entire Facebook platform, competing with products built by professional teams with real budgets. Students, 10 weeks. Fogg's framework wasn't sinister, it was academic. He was interested in what he called persuasive technology, the study of how computers change what people think and do. His students weren't villains. They were just very good at one thing: removing friction. Take away the step, take away the pause, take away the moment of conscious choice between intention and action. Then the behavior happens automatically. What that classroom produced, and what spread from Silicon Valley across an entire industry, was a vocabulary, a set of tools, triggers, variable rewards, investment mechanisms. The exact sequence Nir Eyal later published as the hook model in a book every product manager in the Valley read. A vocabulary doesn't need a conspiracy. It just needs a shared framework and aligned incentives. The incentive was engagement. The framework already existed. The rest followed like water running downhill. Most people stop here. Stay with me. Because the story isn't just about what was built, it's about what the builders said afterward. Asa Raskin. Not a famous name, but you've already used his most famous invention dozens of times today. In 2006, Raskin was a young interface designer annoyed by pages. Search results. Next page, click, load. One afternoon, he wrote the code for infinite scroll. No next page, no stop. Just content loading automatically as you move downward. He thought it was elegant. Years later, Raskin publicly calculated that infinite scroll wastes the equivalent of 200,000 human lives. Every day, he now testifies in courtrooms about the technology he built. In 2026, he stood against Meta in a New Mexico courtroom. The man who built the cage is trying to tear it down, but the cage is already in 3 billion pockets. Parker said, "We did it anyway." Raskin said, "I didn't understand what I'd built until it was everywhere." Tristan Harris, who spent years as a design ethicist at Google before leaving to co-found the Center for Humane Technology, brought it back to the core. As long as you're worth more as a product than as a customer, you're worth more when you're addicted, outraged, anxious, because each of those states means more time on the platform. 3 people, 3 levels of awareness, same outcome. We're halfway through, and what I haven't told you yet, that's the part that's going to stay with you. Because everything up to this point, you can still write off as an engineering mistake. Good intentions, wrong outcome. Irresponsible maybe, but not a crime. What comes next is not a mistake. In the early 1960s, chemists at Philip Morris discovered something by adding ammonia to tobacco smoke, a process called nicotine freebasing. Nicotine was absorbed faster, hit the brain harder, left the system sooner, which meant the user wanted the next cigarette sooner. They called it product optimization. In 1972, a chief scientist at Philip Morris wrote in an internal memo, "No one has ever become a cigarette smoker by smoking cigarettes without nicotine." He wasn't warning against it. He was describing the business model. They knew the product was the drug, the tobacco was the delivery mechanism, and while their scientists worked on more effective addiction, their PR teams funded a network of researchers seeding scientific doubt about whether smoking was even harmful. Not to prove it was safe, just to create enough noise that nobody was certain enough to act. Now replace cigarette with feed algorithm. Replace nicotine with dopamine. Replace ammonia with variable reward schedule. Every sentence still works. This isn't coincidence. It's a pattern. Engineer the product for maximum dependency. Deploy PR to spread doubt. Same playbook, different industry. The tobacco industry ran this for 50 years before the legal system caught up. We're somewhere in the middle of round 2. October 2024. A lawsuit from the Kentucky Attorney General against TikTok contained internal company documents. Documents that were supposed to be redacted, but weren't. A simple formatting error. Anyone who copied the text could read what was underneath the black bars. What was underneath? TikTok's own researchers had identified the exact threshold at which a user becomes addicted to the platform. 260 videos. At the average length of TikTok content, 8 to 15 seconds, 260 videos takes roughly 35 minutes. After 35 minutes of use, a user is, and I'm quoting directly from their document, likely to become addicted to the platform. The same document showed TikTok knew that compulsive use leads to loss of analytical ability, memory formation, contextual thinking, and increased anxiety. They tested whether screen time notifications would help. Average daily use dropped from 108.5 minutes to 107 minutes. They saw the result. They didn't change the platform. Parker said it in 2017. We understood this consciously, and we did it anyway. TikTok had the data in 2024. They had the 260 video threshold. They had the mental health correlations documented, and they left the system running. This isn't negligence. Negligence is not knowing. This has a different name. Here's what I keep coming back to. The tobacco companies survived decades of people knowing that cigarettes were addictive. Knowing didn't change behavior at any meaningful scale, because the product was specifically designed to outlast your awareness of it. The nicotine was still there after you knew what nicotine was. The variable reward schedule is still there after you can explain exactly how it works. The people building these platforms know this too. They've read the same history. I'm not closing this with advice to delete your apps, or do a dopamine detox, or set a 2-hour screen limit. Information alone has already proven it's not enough. What you do have now is the architecture. You know who designed it, when, and why. You know that 35 minutes is the threshold they identified themselves. And you know that after they knew, they changed nothing. They built this system knowing you'd eventually figure out what it was. The only variable they couldn't calculate is you.